It was February 18th, 2026, at 2:47 a.m. when a dream so vivid and disturbing drove me to the cliffside garden overlooking the terraced vineyards near my home. And there, surrounded by ancient grapevines cascading down the hillside in perfect geometric rows that disappeared into the pre-dawn darkness, their twisted trunks like arthritic fingers reaching toward heaven, Jesus appeared before me with tears streaming down his face and revealed that he has been calling out three specific names, three people who will either answer in March or miss their divine appointment forever. Not everyone who sees this message is meant to see it. Some will scroll past, some will ignore it. But you've been marked. I need you to do something right now, before we go any further. I need you to type your prayer request in the comments below. I don't care how long it is. I don't care how impossible it seems. I need you to put it out there because what I'm about to share with you over these next few nights is going to challenge everything you think you know about how Jesus calls his people, and I need to know you're serious. I need to know you're not just here for entertainment. And if you're a true believer, if you're someone who actually wants to hear what Jesus is saying right now in this moment in March 2026, then subscribe to this channel, click that button, because I'm telling you, YouTube doesn't want you to see this content. The algorithm buries messages like this. They want you watching everything else, anything else, but not this. Some of you know me as the actor who portrays Jesus in The Chosen. That show has reached hundreds of millions of people across the world, and I'm grateful for that platform. But what I'm sharing with you now has nothing to do with scripts or directors or production schedules. This is real. This happened to me. And it's happening right now as I stand here in this garden at nearly 3 in the morning, my hands shaking as I try to process what I've just experienced. The temperature had dropped to maybe 45 degrees, unusual for this time of year, and I could see my breath forming small clouds in the darkness. I'd thrown on jeans and a heavy jacket, not even thinking, just moving on instinct, driven by something I couldn't name. The dream had been so real. I'd seen three names written in fire, but when I woke up, I couldn't remember them. Just the number three. Just the certainty that time was running out. I drove 15 minutes to this place, a cliffside garden that I discovered 2 years ago when I needed to get away from everything. It's private property, but the owner, an elderly Italian man who tends these vineyards, gave me permission to come here whenever I need to pray. He doesn't know who I am. He just saw someone who needed a quiet place to meet with God. The garden sits at the edge of a cliff, maybe 300 feet above the valley floor. During the day, you can see for miles, rows and rows of grapevines terraced into the hillside, olive groves in the distance, the geometry of human cultivation imposed on wild landscape. But at 2:47 in the morning, all of that disappears into shadow. There's just the cliff edge, the stars above, and the sound of wind moving through the vines. I walked to the stone bench near the edge. The owner built it himself, he told me. After his wife died, he'd sit here and talk to her. I understood that. I'm 51 years old, never married, no children. There are nights when the loneliness is so heavy I can barely breathe. This bench has absorbed a lot of my tears, a lot of my questions, a lot of my desperate prayers. I sat down, and the cold from the stone immediately seeped through my jeans. Above me, the stars were impossibly bright. No light pollution out here, just the Milky Way stretched across the sky like a river of light. I could smell the earth, rich and damp from recent rain. The grapevines rustled in the wind, a sound like whispered conversations. "I don't understand," I said out loud. "What are you trying to tell me?" And that's when the light changed. I don't know how else to describe it. The darkness didn't disappear, it was still night, but suddenly there was a presence of light, a quality of illumination that had no source. It was as if the air itself became luminous. And standing there, maybe 10 feet from the bench between me and the cliff edge, was Jesus. Not the Jesus I portray on screen, not the Jesus of paintings or stained glass. This was him, real, solid, present. He was wearing simple clothes, a tunic that looked handmade, worn. His feet were bare despite the cold. His hair moved in the wind. And his face was wet with tears. I couldn't move. I couldn't speak. My heart was hammering so hard I thought it might burst. "Jonathan," he said, and his voice was exactly as I'd always imagined it, strong but gentle, authoritative but intimate. "Do you know why you're here?" I shook my head. I tried to speak, but nothing came out. He took a step closer. Behind him, the stars seemed to pulse with light. "I have been calling three names," he said. "Three people who are at the edge of their divine appointment. Three people who will either answer in March or miss what I have prepared for them since before the foundation of the world." "Who?" I managed to whisper. "Who are they?" "That's why you're here," he said. "To tell them, to warn them. Because time is shorter than anyone realizes. He turned and looked out over the cliff edge, over the terraced vineyards disappearing into darkness. Do you see these vines? He asked. I stood up, my legs shaking, and moved closer to him. I could smell something. Not cologne, not anything artificial. Just a scent like fresh bread and wine and something else I couldn't identify. Life itself, maybe. Yes, I said. Every vine here was planted with purpose, he said. Every vine has a specific location, a specific purpose in the harvest. The owner of this vineyard knows each one. He knows which vines produce the sweetest fruit. He knows which ones struggle. He knows which ones are about to break through into their most productive season. He turned back to me, and the intensity in his eyes was almost unbearable. I know my vines, he said. I know every person I've planted in this world. I know their purpose, I know their season, and I know when their moment of breakthrough is coming. The three names, I said, are they people who are about to break through? They are people who are at a crossroads, he said. They are people who have been prepared for something specific, something that will happen in March, but they don't know it yet. They're going about their lives, thinking they have time, thinking they'll answer my call when it's more convenient, and they're about to miss it. The wind picked up suddenly, and I had to steady myself. The grapevines thrashed and rustled, and for a moment it sounded like they were crying out. What happens if they miss it? I asked. Jesus' expression changed. The sorrow deepened. Do you want to see? He asked. Before I could answer, the scene around us shifted. We were still in the garden, still on the cliff. But now I could see something else overlaid on reality, a vision, but more real than any dream. I saw a woman, maybe 35 years old, sitting in her car in a parking garage. She was crying, her hands gripping the steering wheel. I could feel her desperation, her exhaustion. She'd been praying for a breakthrough in her career, in her finances, in her purpose. She'd been asking God for years. What am I supposed to do? What am I here for? Her name is Sarah, Jesus said quietly beside me. And in March, on the 17th, she's going to receive a phone call, an opportunity, something she's been preparing for her entire life without knowing it. It will require her to say yes immediately. It will require faith. It will require her to leave behind what's comfortable. Will she say yes? I asked. Jesus was quiet for a moment. That depends on whether she hears me calling her name, he said. I've been calling it for 3 weeks now, but she's so busy, so distracted, so convinced that God has forgotten her that she's not listening. The vision shifted. Now I saw a man, maybe 40 years old, sitting alone in his apartment. The place was a mess, dishes piled up, clothes everywhere. He looked defeated, broken. His name is Michael, Jesus said. He's a worship leader who walked away from ministry 3 years ago after a devastating betrayal. He thinks I'm done with him. He thinks he's disqualified. But in March, on the 23rd, I'm going to bring someone into his life who will invite him back into his calling. A new church, a new beginning, a chance to lead my people into my presence in a way he never could have before his breaking. But he won't believe it's you, I said, somehow knowing it was true. No, Jesus said softly. He won't, because he's not listening for his name. He's convinced himself that I've moved on, that I've found someone better, someone less damaged, and he's going to say no. The sorrow in his voice was crushing. I felt tears running down my own face. The vision shifted again. This time I saw a young man, maybe 23, 24 years old. He was in a college library surrounded by books, looking exhausted and lost. His name is David, Jesus said, and he's about to give up on everything. He's studying to be a doctor, but it's not his calling, it's his parents' dream. In March, on the 9th, he's going to meet someone who will recognize the prophetic gift in him, someone who will invite him into training, into mentorship, into his true purpose. But he's so locked into the path he thinks he should take that he won't recognize my voice when I call his name. The vision faded, and we were back in the garden. The stars above seemed dimmer somehow. The wind had died down to almost nothing. 3 names, Jesus said. 3 people. 3 divine appointments in March. And all 3 of them are in danger of missing it because they're not listening. I wiped my face with my sleeve. Why are you showing me this? I asked. What am I supposed to do? He turned to face me fully, and the love in his eyes was almost more than I could bear. You're going to tell them, he said. You're going to tell everyone who watches, everyone who listens, that I am calling names right now, that March is not just another month, that there are divine appointments, divine opportunities, divine moments that will not come again. But I don't know who they are, I said. I don't know Sarah or Michael or David. I don't know how to reach them. You don't need to know, he said. I know, and I will make sure this message reaches them. But they need to be listening. They need to be watching. They need to be paying attention. He stepped closer to me, close enough that I could have reached out and touched him. Jonathan, he said, I didn't choose you to portray me on television by accident. I didn't give you that platform randomly. You know what it's like to wait for your calling. You know what it's like to wonder if you've missed your moment. You were 43 years old when The Chosen started. You thought you were too old. You thought your time had passed. I nodded, unable to speak. But it hadn't, he said. Your moment came exactly when I planned it. And now I'm using you to tell others that their moment is coming too. But they have to be ready. They have to be listening for their name. The light around him began to intensify. The stars above seemed to pulse in rhythm with my heartbeat. Come back tomorrow night, he said. Same time, same place. There's more you need to understand. There's more I need to show you about what happens when people miss their divine appointments, and there's more I need to show you about how to recognize when I'm calling your name. Wait, I said. How will they know? How will Sarah and Michael and David know that you're calling them? He smiled then, and it was like the sun rising. That's what tomorrow night is for, he said. But tell them this. If they're watching this video, if they've made it this far, if something in their spirit is stirring right now, that's me. That's me calling their name. That's me saying, pay attention. March is coming. Your moment is coming. Don't miss it. And then he was gone. The light faded. The garden returned to normal darkness. I was alone on the stone bench, shaking, tears streaming down my face, the cold seeping into my bones. I sat there for another hour, maybe longer, trying to process what had just happened. The sky began to lighten in the east, the first hint of dawn touching the horizon. The terraced vineyards slowly emerged from shadow, row after row of carefully tended vines, each one planted with purpose, each one known by the owner. I thought about Sarah in her car, crying, desperate for purpose. I thought about Michael in his apartment, convinced he was disqualified. I thought about David in the library, about to give up on his true calling, and I thought about everyone else, everyone watching this video, everyone who's been praying for breakthrough, everyone who's been asking God, what am I here for? What's my purpose? Have you forgotten me? Listen to me, if you're still watching this, if you've made it this far, that's not an accident. Jesus just told me that he's calling 3 specific names in March. 3 people who have divine appointments coming. 3 people who are in danger of missing it because they're not paying attention. What if one of those names is yours? What if you're Sarah? What if you're Michael? What if you're David? I'm coming back here tomorrow night. Same time, same place. Jesus told me there's more. More I need to understand, more I need to share with you about how to recognize his voice, how to know when he's calling your name, and what happens when people miss their divine appointments. But right now I need you to do something. I need you to get alone with God. I need you to ask him, are you calling my name? Is March my moment? Do I have a divine appointment coming? And then I need you to listen, really listen, not with your ears, but with your spirit. Type, I'm listening in the comments if you're serious about this, if you're willing to pay attention, if you're willing to be ready for whatever God is about to do in March, because time is shorter than you think, and some opportunities only come once. I'll see you tomorrow night. Same place, same time. Be ready. It was February 19th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m., the exact same time as the night before, when I found myself driving back to the cliffside garden, my hands gripping the steering wheel so tightly my knuckles were white. I hadn't slept. I couldn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw those 3 faces. Sarah, Michael, David, and I felt the weight of what Jesus had told me pressing down on my chest like a physical force. The temperature had dropped even further tonight, maybe 38 degrees, and a fog had rolled in from the valley below, thick and dense, swallowing the terraced vineyards in a blanket of gray. I could barely see 10 feet in front of me as I walked from my car to the stone bench. The moisture in the air clung to my jacket, my hair, my face. Everything was damp and cold and eerily silent. The fog changed everything about this place. Last night I could see the stars, the vast expanse of sky, the geometry of the vineyards stretching into darkness. Tonight, the world had contracted to just this small circle of visibility, the bench, a few grapevines, the cliff edge somewhere ahead in the murk. It felt claustrophobic and infinite at the same time. I sat down on the bench, and immediately the cold seeped through my jeans again. I'd worn warmer clothes this time, thermal layers, a heavier jacket, gloves. But it didn't matter. The cold wasn't just physical. It was spiritual. It was the cold of waiting, of anticipation, of knowing something significant was about to happen. "I'm here," I said out loud, my voice swallowed by the fog. "I came back like you said." For a long moment nothing happened, just the silence and the fog and the occasional drip of moisture from the grapevines. I could hear my own breathing, my own heartbeat. The fog was so thick I couldn't even see the cliff edge anymore. For all I knew, I could have been anywhere, suspended in gray nothingness. And then I heard footsteps, not on pavement or concrete, on earth, soft, deliberate footsteps moving through the fog toward me. My heart started racing. Every instinct told me to run, but I couldn't move. I was frozen on that bench, watching the fog, waiting. He emerged from the gray like a figure in a dream, but more solid, more real than anything around him. Jesus. The same Jesus from last night, but somehow his presence was even more intense tonight. The fog seemed to part around him, creating a clear space, a bubble of visibility that moved with him as he approached. "You came back," he said, and there was something in his voice, approval, but also sadness. Most people wouldn't have. Most people would have convinced themselves that last night was a dream, a hallucination, too much coffee before bed. "I couldn't stay away," I said. "I can't stop thinking about them. Sarah, Michael, David, I keep wondering if they're watching, if they're listening, if they know you're calling them." Jesus sat down beside me on the bench, and I felt warmth radiating from him, pushing back the cold. "Some are listening," he said. "Some are starting to pay attention, but others—" He trailed off, looking out into the fog. "Others are still distracted, still busy, still convinced they have more time." He turned to look at me, and his eyes were filled with an urgency I hadn't seen last night. "Jonathan, do you understand what a divine appointment is?" "I think so," I said. "It's when God arranges a specific moment, a specific opportunity." "It's more than that," he interrupted. "A divine appointment is a moment when heaven and earth align, when preparation meets opportunity, when everything you've been through, every trial, every failure, every season of waiting, suddenly makes sense because it was all leading to this one moment." He stood up and walked toward the cliff edge, disappearing into the fog. I jumped up and followed him, afraid to lose sight of him. As I moved forward, the fog seemed to thin slightly, and I could see him standing right at the edge, looking down into the gray void below. "Come here," he said. "Stand beside me." I moved carefully toward the edge, my heart pounding. I couldn't see the valley floor below, just fog, endless fog. It was terrifying and disorienting. "This is what it feels like," Jesus said quietly, "when you're standing at the edge of your divine appointment. You can't see what's ahead. You can't see the outcome. You can't see how it's all going to work out. You just have to trust that I know what I'm doing. You just have to step forward when I call your name." He gestured out into the fog. "Watch," he said, and suddenly the fog began to move, to swirl, to form shapes. I was seeing another vision, but this time it was more intense, more detailed than last night. I saw Sarah again, the woman in her car, but now I was seeing more of her story. I saw her childhood, growing up in poverty, watching her mother work 3 jobs just to keep food on the table. I saw her putting herself through college, graduating with honors, landing a good job in marketing. I saw her climbing the corporate ladder, making good money, finally achieving the financial security her family never had. But I also saw her emptiness. I saw her lying awake at night, feeling like something was missing. I saw her praying, asking God, "Is this all there is? Is this what you made me for?" "Sarah has a gift," Jesus said beside me. "She has the ability to communicate vision, to inspire people, to cast a picture of what could be, but she's been using that gift to sell products nobody needs. She's been using her talent to make rich companies richer." The vision shifted. I saw Sarah receiving a phone call, the call Jesus had mentioned last night. I could see the caller ID, Hope International Ministries. I could feel her confusion, her hesitation. She didn't recognize the number. "On March 17th, Jesus said, that phone will ring. On the other end will be a woman named Patricia who runs a nonprofit that brings clean water and education to villages in East Africa." Patricia has been praying for 2 years for someone to lead their communications team, someone who understands marketing, who can tell stories that move people to action, who can help them expand their reach and impact. That's Sarah's calling, I whispered. That's Sarah's divine appointment, Jesus corrected. Patricia found Sarah's profile online. She's been impressed by Sarah's work. She's going to offer her the position. It pays half what Sarah makes now. It will require her to travel to difficult places. It will require her to leave behind the comfortable life she's built. Will she say yes? I asked. The vision showed Sarah staring at her phone, letting the call go to voicemail. I saw her later, listening to the message, feeling a stirring in her spirit. But then I saw her looking at her apartment, her car, her closet full of expensive clothes. I saw her calculating her bills, her retirement savings, her security. She's going to talk herself out of it, Jesus said, and the pain in his voice was crushing. She's going to convince herself that it's not practical, that she can't afford it, that maybe God will open another door later. But there won't be another door, not like this one. Patricia will call someone else. The position will be filled, and Sarah will spend the next 10 years wondering why she feels so empty, why her life feels so meaningless, never knowing that she missed her moment. The vision faded back into fog, and I felt sick to my stomach. Can't you make her answer? I asked. Can't you make her say yes? Jesus turned to me, and his expression was fierce. I don't make anyone do anything, he said. I call, I invite, I prepare, but they have to choose. They have to step forward in faith. That's what makes it real. That's what makes it meaningful. He started walking along the cliff edge, and I followed him, the fog swirling around us. Let me show you, Michael, he said. The fog shifted again, forming new shapes, new scenes. I saw Michael, the worship leader, but younger, maybe 10 years ago. I saw him leading worship in a mid-sized church, his hands raised, his voice strong, tears streaming down his face as he sang. I could feel the presence of God in that room. I could feel people encountering Jesus through Michael's worship. Michael has a rare gift, Jesus said. He doesn't just lead worship, he creates space for my presence. When he sings, when he plays, heaven opens. People are healed, people are delivered, people meet me in ways they never have before. But then the vision darkened. I saw a meeting, church leadership, sitting around a table. I saw accusations, lies, politics. I saw Michael being blamed for something he didn't do, being forced to resign, being publicly humiliated. I saw him packing up his equipment, walking out of the church for the last time, feeling like God himself had abandoned him. He was betrayed by people he trusted, Jesus said quietly, by people who were supposed to be his spiritual family, and it broke something in him. He stopped leading worship. He stopped playing music. He convinced himself that if I really loved him, I wouldn't have let that happen. The vision shifted forward to the present. I saw Michael in his apartment, the same scene from last night, but now I could see more details. Empty beer bottles on the counter, a guitar in the corner, covered in dust, a Bible on the shelf, unopened for months. He thinks he's disqualified, Jesus said. He thinks that because he's been hurt, because he's angry, because he's struggling, I can't use him anymore. But he doesn't understand that I've been using this breaking to prepare him for something greater. The vision moved forward to March 23rd. I saw a man, maybe 50 years old, kind face, gentle eyes, approaching Michael in a coffee shop. I saw them talking. I saw the man introducing himself as the pastor of a new church plant, explaining that he'd heard about Michael years ago, that he'd been praying about whether to reach out. This pastor's name is Robert, Jesus said, and he's building something different. A church for the broken, the hurt, the ones who've been wounded by religion. He needs a worship leader who understands pain, who can create space for people to encounter me in their brokenness. Michael is perfect for this. It's what I've been preparing him for through everything he's suffered. But he won't believe it, I said, remembering what Jesus had told me last night. The vision showed Michael listening to Robert's invitation, and I could see the war happening inside him. Part of him wanted to say yes. Part of him felt that familiar stirring, that call to worship. But then I saw his face harden. I saw him shake his head. I saw him say, I appreciate it, but I'm done with church. I'm done with ministry. I'm done with all of it. I saw Robert's disappointment. I saw him leaving the coffee shop alone. And I saw Michael sitting there, convincing himself he'd made the right choice, never knowing that he'd just walked away from his divine appointment. No, I said out loud. No, that can't happen. You have to stop him. You have to make him see. I can't make him see anything, Jesus said, and now there was frustration in his voice, a holy anger. I've been calling his name for 3 weeks. I've been sending him signs, stirring his spirit, reminding him of who he is. But he's so wrapped up in his hurt, so convinced that I've abandoned him, that he can't hear me anymore. The vision dissolved back into fog, and Jesus turned to face me fully. The fog around us began to swirl faster, more violently. The temperature dropped even further, and I started shivering despite my layers. "Do you see the pattern?" he asked. "Do you see what's happening?" "They're both letting fear stop them," I said. "Sarah's afraid of losing her security. Michael's afraid of being hurt again." "Fear," Jesus said, and the words seemed to echo in the fog. "Fear is the enemy of divine appointments. Fear is what makes people miss their moment. Not inability, not lack of preparation. Fear." He moved closer to me, and the intensity in his eyes was almost unbearable. "Jonathan, I need you to understand something. When I call someone's name, when I set up a divine appointment, I've already prepared everything. I've already arranged the circumstances. I've already equipped them with everything they need. The only thing that can stop it from happening is their choice, their fear, their unwillingness to trust me." The fog around us suddenly lifted slightly, and I could see more of the vineyard now. The grapevines emerged from the gray, row after row of them, their twisted trunks and bare branches visible in the dim pre-dawn light. "Look at these vines," Jesus said, gesturing to them. "Every winter they look dead, bare, lifeless. The owner cuts them back, prunes them severely. If you didn't know better, you'd think he was killing them. But he's not. He's preparing them for the next season of fruitfulness. He's cutting away everything that would drain their energy, everything that would prevent them from producing the best fruit." He turned back to me. "That's what I've been doing with Sarah and Michael and David. I've been pruning them. I've been cutting away everything that would prevent them from fulfilling their purpose. Sarah's dissatisfaction with her corporate job, that's me, pruning away her attachment to money and security. Michael's breaking and isolation, that's me, pruning away his pride and his need for approval from people. David's exhaustion and confusion, that's me, pruning away his need to please his parents instead of following his true calling." "But they don't see it that way," I said. "No," Jesus agreed. "They see it as punishment, as abandonment, as evidence that I don't care about them. And so when March comes, when their divine appointment arrives, they won't recognize it. They'll be so focused on their pain, their fear, their disappointment, that they'll miss the very thing I've been preparing them for." The fog began to close in again, and Jesus' form started to fade slightly. "Come back tomorrow night," he said. "Same time, same place. There's one more thing you need to see. One more thing you need to understand about David and about what happens when people miss their divine appointments. And there's something I need to tell you about how to recognize when I'm calling your name." "Wait," I said urgently. "What about the people watching this? What about Sarah and Michael? How do they know if you're calling them? How do they know if they have a divine appointment coming in March?" Jesus' form solidified again, and he stepped close to me one more time. "Tell them this," he said. "If they've been feeling restless lately, if they've been feeling dissatisfied with where they are, if they've been feeling like something needs to change but they don't know what, that's me. That's me preparing them. That's me pruning them for their next season. And tell them this," he continued. "If an opportunity comes in March, any opportunity that requires faith, that requires them to step out of their comfort zone, that requires them to trust me more than their circumstances, they need to pay attention. They need to pray. They need to ask me, 'Is this you? Is this my divine appointment?' And if they feel peace in their spirit, if they feel that stirring, that sense of yes deep inside, that's me calling their name." The fog swallowed him completely then, and I was alone again on the cliff edge. But I could still hear his voice echoing through the gray. "Tomorrow night, final warning, final revelation. Don't miss it." I stood there for a long time, shivering, watching the fog slowly lift as dawn approached. The terraced vineyards emerged fully now, row after row of pruned vines, looking dead but full of potential, waiting for spring, waiting for their season of fruitfulness. I thought about everyone watching this video. I thought about how many people are in their winter season right now, feeling pruned, feeling cut back, feeling like God has forgotten them. And I thought about how many of them have divine appointments coming in March, opportunities that will require faith, that will require them to trust God more than their circumstances. Listen to me. If you're watching this, if you made it through part 1 and now you're here in part 2, that's not an accident. Jesus is calling names. He's setting up divine appointments. And one of those appointments might be yours. Have you been feeling restless lately? Have you been feeling like something needs to change? Have you been feeling dissatisfied with where you are, even if on paper everything looks fine? That's not depression. That's not ingratitude. That's God pruning you. That's God preparing you for your next season. And if an opportunity comes in March, I don't care how crazy it sounds. I don't care how impractical it seems. I don't care how much it scares you. You need to pay attention. You need to pray. You need to ask God, is this you? Is this my divine appointment? Because I'm telling you, some opportunities only come once. Some moments can't be recreated. Some divine appointments, if you miss them, you miss them forever. Type, I won't miss my moment in the comments if you're serious about this. If you're willing to say yes when God calls your name in March. If you're willing to trust Him more than your circumstances. Tomorrow night is the final part. Jesus said He's going to show me what happens when people miss their divine appointments. He's going to show me David's story, and He's going to give me specific instructions for how to prepare for your divine appointment if you have one coming in March. Same time, same place. 2:47 a.m., the final revelation. Don't miss it. And more importantly, don't miss your moment when it comes. I'll see you tomorrow night. It was February 20th, 2026 at 2:47 a.m. when I arrived at the Cliffside Garden for the third night, and this time everything was different. The fog from last night had completely cleared, and in its place was something I'd never seen before in all my visits to this place. A storm was building on the horizon. Not rain, not yet, but you could feel it in the air. The atmospheric pressure had changed. The wind was picking up, coming in gusts that made the grapevines thrash and bend. The temperature had risen to maybe 55 degrees, unseasonably warm, and the air felt electric, charged with anticipation. Above me, the sky was a churning mass of clouds, moving fast, illuminated from within by sheet lightning that never quite reached the ground. The flashes lit up the terraced vineyards in stark relief, moments of brilliant clarity followed by deeper darkness. It was beautiful and terrifying at the same time. I'd barely slept again, maybe 2 hours total over the past 3 nights. My body was exhausted, but my spirit was wide awake, humming with an energy I couldn't explain. I'd spent the entire day yesterday reading the comments on the videos, seeing the prayer requests, seeing people say, I'm listening and I won't miss my moment. Thousands of comments, tens of thousands. And I kept wondering, are Sarah, Michael, and David among them? Are they watching? Are they paying attention? I sat on the stone bench, and this time I didn't feel the cold. The wind whipped around me, pulling at my jacket, and I could smell rain coming, that distinctive scent of ozone and wet earth. In the distance, I could hear thunder rumbling, still far away but approaching. I'm here, I called out into the wind. I'm ready for whatever you need to show me. The lightning flashed again, closer this time, and in that moment of illumination, I saw Him. Jesus was standing about 20 feet away, near the cliff edge, his back to me, looking out over the valley. His clothes and hair were moving in the wind, and even from this distance I could sense the weight He was carrying. Not physical weight, spiritual weight, the weight of knowing what was coming, the weight of watching people He loves make choices that will cost them everything. Jonathan, He said without turning around, His voice somehow cutting through the wind. Come stand with me. I got up and walked toward Him, my legs steadier tonight than they'd been the previous 2 nights. As I approached, another flash of lightning illuminated the valley below, and I could see the full expanse of the terraced vineyards, the olive groves, the distant hills. It was breathtaking. I stood beside Him at the cliff edge, and we both looked out over the landscape. For a long moment, neither of us spoke. The wind howled, the lightning flashed, the thunder grew louder. This is what it feels like, Jesus said finally, when a divine appointment is about to be missed. This tension, this building storm, this sense that something significant is about to happen, but it could go either way. He turned to look at me, and His face was etched with a sorrow so deep it made my chest ache. Tonight I'm going to show you David, He said, and I'm going to show you what happens, really happens, when someone misses their divine appointment. Not just to them, but to everyone connected to them, because that's what people don't understand. Divine appointments aren't just about you. They're about everyone your obedience would have touched. Before I could respond, the wind suddenly intensified and the vision began. But this time it was different from the previous nights. This time I wasn't just watching, I was experiencing it. I could feel what David felt. I could think his thoughts. It was like I became him for a moment. I was sitting in a library, a university library, late at night. Medical textbooks were spread out in front of me. Anatomy, physiology, pharmacology. Pages and pages of information that I was supposed to memorize, supposed to master, supposed to build my future on, but I couldn't focus. The words blurred together. My head pounded. My chest felt tight. I was 23 years old, a third-year medical student, my parents' dream. My father was a doctor. My grandfather was a doctor. It was the family legacy, the family expectation. David will be a doctor, they'd been saying since I was 5 years old, and I'd never questioned it, never considered anything else, until now. Because lately something had been stirring inside me. Something I couldn't name, couldn't explain. When I was in church, which wasn't often anymore because medical school consumed everything, I would feel this pull, this sense that God was trying to tell me something, and sometimes late at night when I couldn't sleep, I would have these vivid dreams. Dreams where I was standing in front of crowds of people, speaking words that weren't my own, words that came from somewhere deeper, prophetic words, words that changed people's lives. But that was crazy, right? That was just stress, just my subconscious trying to escape the pressure of medical school. It wasn't real, it wasn't practical, it wasn't the plan. The vision shifted, and suddenly I was back in my own body, standing on the cliff with Jesus. I was gasping, my heart racing from the intensity of what I'd just experienced. "That's David," Jesus said quietly, "right now, tonight, sitting in that library, trying to force himself to care about a calling that isn't his, trying to ignore the prophetic gift that's burning inside him." "He's a prophet?" I asked. "He's more than a prophet," Jesus said. "He's a prophetic voice for his generation. He has the ability to hear my voice with unusual clarity and to communicate it in ways that young people can understand and receive. In a generation that's walking away from the church, that's rejecting religion, that's hungry for authentic encounter with me, David could be a bridge. He could reach thousands, maybe millions, who would never listen to traditional preachers." Another flash of lightning, and the vision continued. I saw David walking across campus on March 9th. He was exhausted, defeated, barely holding it together. And then I saw him, a man, maybe 60 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle smile. The man was visiting the campus, speaking at a Christian student group meeting that David had no intention of attending, but their paths crossed, literally. David, not paying attention, walked right into him, dropping his books everywhere. "I'm so sorry," David said, scrambling to pick up his textbooks. The older man bent down to help, and as he handed David a book, their eyes met. And in that moment, the man saw something, recognized something. "You're carrying a heavy weight," the man said, not a question, a statement. David froze. I'm fine, just stressed about exams." "No," the man said gently, "it's more than that. You're trying to walk a path that isn't yours, aren't you?" And something in David broke. Right there on the sidewalk, surrounded by other students rushing to class, he started crying. This stranger, this man he'd never met, had seen him, really seen him. "I'm Robert Chen," the man said. "I run a prophetic training school in Oregon. We identify and train young prophetic voices, and I don't usually do this, but I believe God just told me that you're supposed to be there, that you're supposed to come train with us." I watched David's face in the vision. I saw hope flicker in his eyes. I saw something in his spirit leap at those words. But then I saw fear crash over him like a wave. "I can't," David said, wiping his face. "I'm in medical school, my parents, my family. I can't just throw that away." "I'm not asking you to decide right now," Robert said, pulling out a card. "But pray about it. Ask God. If this is him, he'll confirm it. The next training cohort starts April 1st. We have one spot left. I believe it's yours if you want it." The vision froze on David holding that card, staring at it, the war visible on his face. "This is his divine appointment," Jesus said beside me. March 9th. This conversation, this invitation, everything in his life has been leading to this moment. Every time he's felt that stirring, every dream he's had, every time he's sensed my voice, it's all been preparing him for this. "Will he say yes?" I asked, though I was afraid I already knew the answer. The vision moved forward. I saw David in his apartment that night, holding the card, praying. I could feel his desperation, his confusion. Part of him wanted to call Robert immediately. Part of him wanted to say yes to everything his spirit was screaming at him. But then I saw him pick up his phone and call his father. "Dad," he said, "something weird happened today." I watched as he explained the encounter, and I watched his father's reaction, the disappointment, the anger, the lecture about responsibility and not throwing away opportunities and not being flaky and unreliable. David, his father said, "You're just stressed. You're almost done with medical school. Don't let some random stranger derail everything you've worked for. This is just the enemy trying to distract you from your purpose." And I saw David's face change. I saw him look at the card one more time, and then I saw him tear it up and throw it away. "No," I said out loud. "No, he can't do that. But the vision continued. I saw March 9th pass. I saw April 1st arrive, the day the training cohort started. I saw Robert Chen standing in front of a group of young people, teaching them, training them, preparing them, and there was an empty chair, David's chair. "Watch what happens," Jesus said, and his voice was heavy with grief. The vision expanded, showing me not just David, but the ripple effects of his choice. I saw him finish medical school, become a doctor like his father wanted, but I saw the light slowly die in his eyes. I saw him going through the motions, successful on paper but empty inside. I saw him at 35, 40, 45, a good doctor, a competent doctor, but miserable, divorced, disconnected from God, wondering why his life felt so meaningless. But that wasn't the worst part. The vision showed me the people David was supposed to reach. I saw a teenage girl, maybe 16, sitting in her bedroom with a bottle of pills, ready to end her life. In the timeline where David said yes, where he became the prophetic voice he was meant to be, I saw him speaking at her school. I saw his words reaching her, breaking through her despair, giving her hope. I saw her putting down the pills and choosing life. But in the timeline where David said no, where he missed his divine appointment, that didn't happen. He wasn't there. His voice wasn't there, and I watched her take the pills. "No," I said, tears streaming down my face. "No, please." The vision showed me more. A young man in his 20s, addicted to drugs, living on the streets. In the timeline where David said yes, I saw David's ministry reaching him through a video someone shared. I saw the prophetic word David spoke piercing through the addiction, calling him back to his identity, back to his purpose. I saw him get clean, get restored, eventually become a youth pastor himself. But in the timeline where David said no, that young man died of an overdose at 27. I saw dozens of them, hundreds, people whose lives would have been touched, changed, saved by David's obedience, people who would never know what they missed because David wasn't where he was supposed to be. "Stop," I begged. "Please, I can't watch anymore." The vision released me, and I fell to my knees on the cliff edge, sobbing. The wind whipped around me, and the thunder crashed directly overhead now. The storm had arrived. Jesus knelt beside me, and I felt his hand on my shoulder. "This is what people don't understand about divine appointments," he said. "They think it's just about them, just about their happiness, their fulfillment, their purpose. But it's so much bigger than that. When you say yes to your divine appointment, you're not just changing your life, you're changing the lives of everyone you were meant to touch. And when you say no," I couldn't finish the sentence. "When you say no," Jesus said quietly, "people die, dreams die, destinies die. Not because I'm punishing anyone, but because you weren't where you were supposed to be. You weren't speaking the words you were supposed to speak. You weren't doing what only you could do." He helped me to my feet, and we stood together at the cliff edge as the storm raged around us. Rain began to fall, not a gentle rain, but a downpour, soaking us both within seconds. Lightning cracked across the sky, illuminating the valley below in brilliant flashes. "Sarah, Michael, and David," Jesus said, raising his voice over the storm. "Three names, three divine appointments in March, three people who are standing at the edge of their purpose right now, and all three of them are in danger of saying no." He turned to face me fully, rain streaming down his face, and the intensity in his eyes was like fire. "But it's not just them," he said. "There are others watching this right now who have divine appointments coming, maybe not in March, maybe in April or June or September, but they're coming, and they need to understand what's at stake." Another massive lightning strike, so close I could feel the electricity in the air. The thunder was deafening. "Tell them," Jesus said. "Tell them that when I call their name, when their divine appointment comes, they need to say yes, even if it's scary, even if it doesn't make sense, even if everyone around them thinks they're crazy, because it's not just about them, it's about everyone they're meant to touch." "But how do they know?" I shouted over the storm. "How do they know for sure it's you and not just their own desires or the enemy trying to distract them?" Jesus smiled then. even in the midst of the storm. That's the question, isn't it? He said. That's what everyone wants to know. How do I know it's really God? He gestured to the storm around us. Look at this, he said. This storm didn't come out of nowhere. There were signs. The pressure changed. The wind picked up. The clouds gathered. You could feel it building for hours before the rain started falling. It's the same with divine appointments, he continued. They don't come out of nowhere. I prepare you. I send signs. I create restlessness. I stir your spirit. I give you dreams and visions and prophetic words. And then, when the moment comes, when the opportunity arrives, there's a recognition in your spirit, a sense of, yes, this is it. This is what I've been waiting for. But what about fear? I asked. What about doubt? Sarah's afraid of losing her security. Michael's afraid of being hurt again. David's afraid of disappointing his parents. How do they push through that? Fear will always be there, Jesus said. That's not the question. The question is, what are you more afraid of? Are you more afraid of stepping out in faith, or are you more afraid of getting to the end of your life and realizing you missed your purpose? Are you more afraid of what people will think, or are you more afraid of standing before me one day and having to explain why you said no when I called your name? The rain began to ease slightly, and the lightning moved further away. The storm was passing, but the air still felt charged, electric. There's something else, Jesus said, something I need you to tell them about March specifically. I waited, water dripping from my hair, my clothes completely soaked. March is a threshold month, he said. It's a month of divine appointments, yes, but it's also a month of testing. I'm going to present opportunities to many people, not just Sarah, Michael, and David. Opportunities that will require faith. Opportunities that will require them to trust me more than their circumstances. And how they respond in March will determine what I can trust them with in the seasons ahead. He moved closer to the cliff edge, and I followed. The rain had stopped now, and the clouds were beginning to break apart. Through the gaps I could see stars appearing, and on the eastern horizon the first hint of dawn was beginning to show. Look, Jesus said, pointing to the terraced vineyards below. The storm had washed everything clean, and in the growing light I could see that the vines, which had looked dead and bare for weeks, were beginning to show the first tiny buds of new growth. Spring was coming. Life was returning. This is what happens after the pruning, Jesus said. This is what happens after the winter season. New life, new growth, new fruitfulness, but only if the vine stays connected to the source, only if it doesn't give up during the hard season. He turned to me one final time. Tomorrow night, tonight actually, since it's almost dawn, you're going to share the practical application. You're going to tell people exactly how to prepare for their divine appointment, how to recognize my voice, how to position themselves to say yes when I call their name, but right now I need you to understand the weight of what I'm asking you to communicate. I understand, I said. Do you? He asked. Do you really understand that there are people watching this who are about to make the most important decision of their lives? Do you understand that what you say, how you say it, could be the difference between someone saying yes or no to their divine appointment? The weight of it hit me like a physical force. I thought about Sarah, Michael, and David. I thought about the teenage girl with the pills. I thought about the young man with the addiction. I thought about all the lives hanging in the balance, all the destinies waiting to be fulfilled or forever missed. I understand, I said again, and this time I meant it with every fiber of my being. Jesus nodded. Good, he said. Then finish this. Tell them what they need to know. Give them the tools to recognize my voice and the courage to say yes, and trust me to reach the ones who need to hear it. The sun broke over the horizon then, brilliant and golden, flooding the valley with light. The terraced vineyards seemed to glow, and I could see every detail, every vine, every bud, every sign of new life emerging from what had looked dead. And when I turned back to say something else to Jesus, he was gone. I was alone on the cliff, soaked to the bone, exhausted, but filled with a sense of purpose more powerful than anything I'd ever felt. I stood there for a long time, watching the sun rise, watching the valley come to life, and I thought about everyone who would watch this video, everyone who's been feeling that restlessness, that stirring, that sense that something needs to change. Everyone who has a divine appointment coming and doesn't even know it yet. Listen to me. If you've made it this far, if you've watched all 3 parts, you need to understand something. This isn't entertainment. This isn't just another YouTube video. This is a warning and an invitation. Jesus is calling names. He's setting up divine appointments, and one of those appointments might be yours. Maybe you're Sarah, and you're about to get a call that will require you to choose between security and purpose. Maybe you're Michael, and you're about to get an invitation back into ministry that will require you to risk being hurt again. Maybe you're David, and you're about to meet someone who will see your true calling and invite you into it, but it will require you to disappoint the people you love. Or maybe you're someone else entirely, with a completely different divine appointment coming. But it's coming, and you need to be ready. Tomorrow, tonight, I'm going to give you the practical steps. I'm going to tell you exactly how to prepare, how to recognize God's voice, how to position yourself to say yes when your moment comes. But right now, I need you to do something. I need you to make a decision. I need you to decide right now that when your divine appointment comes, whenever it comes, you're going to say yes, even if it's scary, even if it doesn't make sense, even if everyone thinks you're crazy. Because it's not just about you, it's about everyone you're meant to touch. It's about the teenage girl who needs to hear your voice. It's about the young man who needs your ministry. It's about the people whose lives will be changed because you were where you were supposed to be. Type, I will say yes in the comments if you're making that decision right now. If you're committing, before you even know what God is going to ask you to do, that you're going to trust Him enough to say yes. One more night. One more message. The practical application. How to prepare for your divine appointment. Don't miss it. And more importantly, don't miss your moment when it comes. I'll see you tonight. It's February 21st, 2026, and I'm sitting here in the full light of day, 2 p.m. to be exact, at the same cliffside garden where I've encountered Jesus for the past 3 nights. I needed to come back here in the daylight, needed to see this place without the drama of darkness and fog and storms, needed to process everything that's happened, everything I've seen, everything I've been asked to communicate to you. The terraced vineyards stretch out below me in perfect geometric rows, and in the afternoon sunlight, I can see what I couldn't see in the darkness. Those tiny buds on the vines are everywhere. Spring is coming, new life is emerging, the pruning season is ending, and the season of fruitfulness is about to begin. I didn't sleep last night. After Jesus left me at dawn yesterday, I went home and I couldn't stop thinking about Sarah, Michael, and David. I couldn't stop seeing that teenage girl with the pills. I couldn't stop seeing all those lives hanging in the balance, all those destinies waiting to be fulfilled or forever missed. And I kept thinking about you, everyone watching this, everyone who's made it through all 4 parts of this message. Because if you're still here, if you haven't clicked away, if something in your spirit has been stirring as you've watched, that's not an accident. That's Jesus calling your name. That's Him preparing you for something. Let me tell you what happened at 2:47 a.m. this morning. I came back here, like I had the previous 3 nights, expecting another encounter, another vision, another dramatic revelation. But this time, Jesus didn't appear in visible form. Instead, I heard His voice, clear, unmistakable, speaking directly to my spirit. Jonathan, He said, everything I've shown you over these 3 nights was preparation for this moment. Now I'm going to tell you what to tell them. I'm going to give you the practical steps, the specific instructions for how to prepare for a divine appointment. Write this down. Don't miss anything. Because there are people watching who have 30 days, just 30 days, to get ready for what I'm about to do in their lives. I pulled out my phone and opened the Notes app, and for the next hour, sitting on that stone bench in the darkness, I typed as fast as I could while Jesus spoke. And now I'm going to share with you exactly what He told me. But first, I need to address something. Some of you watching this are skeptical. Some of you are thinking, this is too dramatic, this is too convenient, this sounds like manipulation. And I get it. I understand. If I were watching this and I hadn't experienced what I've experienced, I might think the same thing. But I'm 51 years old. I've been in this industry long enough to know the difference between performance and reality. I've played Jesus on screen for years now, and I can tell you with absolute certainty, what I experienced over these past 3 nights was not performance. It was not imagination. It was not a dream or a vision in the traditional sense. It was an encounter with the living God, and it has wrecked me in the best possible way. You don't have to believe me, but I'm asking you to at least consider the possibility that what I'm sharing is true. Because if it is true, if Jesus really is calling names and setting up divine appointments in March, and if you're one of those people, you can't afford to miss this. So here's what Jesus told me to tell you. Here are the practical steps for preparing for your divine appointment. Step 1. The 30-minute daily encounter. Jesus said, tell them they need to give me 30 minutes every single day between now and March 31st. Not 30 minutes of religious activity, Not 30 minutes of reading devotionals or listening to worship music or scrolling through Christian social media. 30 minutes of actual encounter, 30 minutes of sitting in my presence and listening. Here's specifically what he told me this looks like. Find a place where you can be alone and undistracted. It doesn't have to be a cliffside garden like this one. It can be your bedroom, your car, a park, anywhere you can be alone with God. Turn off your phone, close your laptop, eliminate every distraction. Spend the first 5 minutes in worship, not performance worship, not trying to sound good or feel a certain way. Just tell Jesus you love him, thank him for specific things, acknowledge his presence. Spend the next 10 minutes in silence. This is the hardest part for most people. Just sit there. Don't pray. Don't read. Don't do anything. Just be still and listen. Your mind will wander. Thoughts will intrude. That's normal. Just keep bringing your attention back to Jesus' presence. Jesus said, "This is where I speak. This is where I prepare hearts. This is where I create the sensitivity to my voice that people will need when their divine appointment comes." Most people miss their divine appointments not because I'm not speaking, but because they've never learned to recognize my voice. They've never practiced listening. Spend the next 10 minutes asking Jesus specific questions and writing down what you sense he's saying, not what you want him to say, not what would be convenient or comfortable, what you actually sense in your spirit. Ask him, is there anything you're trying to tell me right now? Ask him, is there anything I need to release or let go of? Ask him, is there anything I need to prepare for? Ask him, do I have a divine appointment coming? Write down whatever comes to mind, even if it seems random or doesn't make sense. Even if it's uncomfortable, write it down. Spend the final 5 minutes praying for sensitivity to his voice. Pray that you'll recognize his leading when it comes. Pray that you'll have the courage to say yes when he calls your name. Jesus said, "Tell them that if they'll do this every day for the next 30 days, I will prepare them. I will tune their spiritual ears. I will create in them the sensitivity they need to recognize their divine appointment when it comes." Step 2. The fear inventory. This is specifically for Sarah, Michael, David, and anyone else who knows they're being called to something but fear is holding them back. Jesus said, "Tell them to write down every fear they have about saying yes to me, every single one. Don't hide anything. Don't spiritualize it. Just be brutally honest about what scares them." So get a piece of paper or open a document on your computer and write it out. I'm afraid of losing my financial security. I'm afraid of what my parents will think. I'm afraid of being hurt again. I'm afraid of failing. I'm afraid of looking stupid. I'm afraid I'm not hearing God correctly. I'm afraid I'm too old, too young, too broken, too unqualified. Write them all down, every fear, every doubt, every reason you have for potentially saying no to your divine appointment. And then, Jesus said, do this. Next to each fear, write this question. Is this fear bigger than my fear of missing my purpose? Because that's the real question. That's what it comes down to. Are you more afraid of the risk of saying yes, or are you more afraid of getting to the end of your life and realizing you missed what you were created for? Jesus told me, most people choose the wrong fear. They choose the fear of stepping out over the fear of missing out, and then they spend the rest of their lives with regret. Don't let that be you. Step 3, the confirmation process. This is crucial, and Jesus was very specific about this. He said, tell them that when an opportunity comes in March or any time, that might be their divine appointment. They need to test it. They need to confirm it, because not every opportunity is from me, and not every stirring in their spirit is my voice. Here's how to test whether an opportunity is a divine appointment. First, does it align with Scripture? God will never call you to do something that contradicts His Word. If an opportunity requires you to compromise your integrity, violate biblical principles, or do something that grieves the Holy Spirit, it's not from God. Period. Second, do you have peace in your spirit? Not excitement necessarily, not the absence of fear, but deep down, underneath the fear and the uncertainty, is there a sense of rightness, a sense of yes, this is it? Jesus said, my sheep know my voice. When I call them, there's a recognition in their spirit, even if their mind is screaming objections. Third, does it require faith? Jesus said, divine appointments always require faith, always. If an opportunity doesn't require you to trust me more than your circumstances, it's probably not a divine appointment. It might be a good opportunity. It might even be a God-blessed opportunity. But divine appointments, the ones that change everything, always require a step of faith. Fourth, have there been confirmations? Has God been preparing you for this? Have there been prophetic words, dreams, signs, or circumstances that seem to be pointing in this direction? Jesus said, I don't usually drop divine appointments out of nowhere. I prepare people, I send confirmations, I create a pattern of evidence that when they look back, they can see I was leading them all along. Fifth, get counsel from mature believers, not from people who will just tell you what you want to hear, and not from people who are so risk averse they'll talk you out of anything that requires faith, but from people who know you, who know God's voice, who can help you discern whether this is really Him. Jesus said, if an opportunity passes all 5 of these tests and you still have peace in your spirit after praying about it, that's me. That's your divine appointment. Say yes. Step 4. The pre-decision. This is what Jesus told me was the most important step, and it's what separates people who fulfill their divine appointments from people who miss them. He said, tell them to make the decision now before they know what I'm going to ask them to do. Tell them to decide right now that when their divine appointment comes, they're going to say yes. Not, I'll think about it. Not, I'll pray about it and see how I feel. But yes, immediate, unconditional yes. This is what Abraham did when God called him to leave his homeland. He didn't know where he was going. He didn't know what God was going to do. He just said yes and started walking. This is what Mary did when the angel told her she was going to give birth to the Messiah. She didn't understand how it was possible. She didn't know how people would react. She just said, let it be to me according to your word. This is what the disciples did when Jesus said, follow me. They didn't negotiate. They didn't ask for time to think about it. They just dropped their nets and followed. Jesus said, the people who fulfill their divine appointments are the people who've already decided to say yes before the opportunity even comes. They've already surrendered. They've already made up their minds that whatever I ask, the answer is yes. So I'm asking you to do that right now. Before you know what God is going to ask you to do, before you know what your divine appointment is, before you know what it will cost you, make the decision right now. Jesus, whatever you ask me to do, whenever you call my name, my answer is yes. Say it out loud. Type it in the comments. Make it real. Make it concrete. Because when March comes, when that phone rings, when that person approaches you, when that opportunity presents itself, you won't have time to deliberate. You'll need to have already decided. Step 5. The accountability partner. Jesus said, tell them they can't do this alone. Tell them they need to find one person, just one, who will hold them accountable to saying yes when their divine appointment comes. This needs to be someone who knows you're watching these videos, someone who knows you're expecting a divine appointment, someone who will ask you the hard questions and won't let you talk yourself out of obedience. Tell them, I believe God is setting up a divine appointment for me in March. I've decided that when it comes, I'm going to say yes, but I need you to hold me accountable. I need you to ask me if any opportunities have presented themselves, and if I start making excuses or talking myself out of something, I need you to call me out. Jesus said, fear is powerful, but community is more powerful. When people have someone holding them accountable, they're much more likely to follow through. So find that person, text them today, call them today, don't wait. The deadline. Here's what Jesus told me specifically about timing. He said March 31st, 2026. That's the deadline. Between now and then, I'm going to present divine appointments to many people. Some will come early in March, some will come late in March, but they're all time sensitive. They're all opportunities that won't come again. That gives you 38 days from today. 38 days to do the daily 30-minute encounters. 38 days to work through your fear inventory. 38 days to prepare your heart to say yes. And for Sarah, Michael, and David specifically, if you're watching this, if you've made it this far, Jesus wants you to know something. He said, tell them I see them. Tell them I know their fears. Tell them I know what I'm asking is hard. But tell them that what I have for them on the other side of their yes is so much greater than what they're holding on to. Tell them to trust me. Sarah, that phone call is coming on March 17th. When you see Hope International Ministries on your caller ID, answer it. Don't let it go to voicemail. Answer it, and when Patricia offers you the position, say yes. I know it pays less. I know it's scary, but it's your purpose. It's what you were created for. Say yes. Michael, on March 23rd, you're going to be in a coffee shop, and a man named Robert is going to approach you. He's going to invite you back into worship ministry, and every fiber of your being is going to want to say no because you're afraid of being hurt again. But Jesus wants you to know, this is different. This is your restoration. This is your comeback. Robert is safe. The church is safe. This is your divine appointment. Say yes. David, on March 9th, you're going to literally run into a man named Robert Chen. He's going to see your prophetic gift and invite you to his training school, and you're going to want to call your father and ask permission. Don't. You're 23 years old. You're an adult. You don't need permission to follow God's call on your life. Your father will be disappointed at first, but he'll come around. And even if he doesn't, you have to obey God rather than man. This is your divine appointment. Say yes. For everyone else, maybe you're not Sarah, Michael, or David. Maybe your divine appointment isn't in March. Maybe it's coming later this year, or next year, or 5 years from now. But everything I've shared still applies to you. Start the 30-minute daily encounters today. Work through your fear inventory. Go through the confirmation process. Make the pre-decision. Find your accountability partner. Because whenever your divine appointment comes, you need to be ready. You need to have practiced listening to God's voice. You need to have already decided to say yes. Jesus told me something else in those early morning hours. He said, "Tell them that I'm not just calling names in March. I'm always calling names. I'm always setting up divine appointments." But most people miss them because they're not paying attention. They're too busy, too distracted, too afraid, too comfortable. He said, "Tell them that the Christian life isn't supposed to be safe and predictable. It's supposed to be an adventure. It's supposed to be a series of divine appointments where I call them to things that require faith, that stretch them, that position them to impact others." He said to tell them that the most dangerous thing they can do is play it safe. The most dangerous thing they can do is choose comfort over calling, because at the end of their lives, they won't regret the things they tried and failed at. They'll regret the things they never tried at all. I'm sitting here in this garden looking out over these terraced vineyards, and I'm thinking about those three names, Sarah, Michael, David. I'm praying that they're watching this. I'm praying that they'll recognize themselves. I'm praying that when their moment comes, they'll say yes. But I'm also thinking about you. I'm thinking about everyone who's made it through all four parts of this message. I'm thinking about the divine appointments that are coming for you, the opportunities that will require faith, the moments when Jesus will call your name and ask you to trust him. And I'm praying that you'll be ready. I'm praying that you'll say yes. The final word. Jesus gave me one more thing to share with you. He said, "Why, you tell them that I'm not asking them to be perfect. I'm not asking them to have it all figured out. I'm not asking them to be fearless. I'm just asking them to be willing. I'm asking them to say yes even when they're scared. I'm asking them to trust me even when they can't see the outcome." He said, "Collins, tell them that every person in Scripture who fulfilled their divine appointment was afraid. Abraham was afraid. Moses was afraid. Gideon was afraid. Esther was afraid. Mary was afraid. The disciples were afraid. But they said yes anyway. They trusted me anyway. And I did through them what they could never have done on their own." He said, "Tell them that's what I want to do through them too. I want to do things through their lives that they could never do on their own. I want to use them to touch people they could never reach on their own. I want to fulfill purposes through them that they could never fulfill on their own." But it all starts with yes. It all starts with being willing to say yes when I call their name. So here's my final question for you. Will you say yes? When your divine appointment comes, whenever it comes, will you say yes? Even if it's scary, even if it doesn't make sense, even if everyone thinks you're crazy, even if it costs you something, even if you can't see the outcome, will you say yes? Type your answer in the comments right now. Not maybe, not I'll think about it, yes or no, because Jesus is calling names. He's setting up divine appointments, and one of those appointments might be yours. Don't miss it. Don't let fear rob you of your purpose. Don't get to the end of your life and realize you missed what you were created for. Say yes. The commitment. If you're serious about this, if you're really committed to being ready for your divine appointment, I want you to do something right now. I want you to subscribe to this channel if you haven't already, because I'm going to be following up on this message. I'm going to be checking in throughout March. I'm going to be sharing testimonies from people who said yes to their divine appointments. And I want you to be part of that. I want you to share this video, share all four parts, because somewhere out there, Sarah is scrolling through social media, Michael is watching YouTube videos, David is looking for answers, and they need to see this message. They need to know that Jesus is calling their name. And I want you to comment below with your commitment. Tell me what you're going to do. Tell me you're going to start the 30-minute daily encounters. Tell me you're making the pre-decision to say yes. Tell me you're finding an accountability partner. Make it public, make it real, make it concrete. Because when you declare something publicly, when you put it out there for others to see, it becomes harder to back out. It becomes a commitment you have to keep. The warning and the promise. I need to end with both a warning and a promise, because Jesus gave me both. The warning. If you ignore this message, if you scroll past it, if you convince yourself it doesn't apply to you, and then your divine appointment comes and you miss it, you will regret it for the rest of your life. You'll spend years wondering, what if? You'll see other people walking in their purpose and wonder why you feel so empty. You'll know, deep down, that you missed your moment. Don't let that be you. But here's the promise. If you take this seriously, if you do the work, if you prepare your heart, if you make the pre-decision to say yes, when your divine appointment comes, you'll recognize it. You'll have the courage to say yes. And you'll step into a level of purpose and fulfillment you never knew was possible. Jesus said, "Tell them that on the other side of their yes is everything they've been longing for: purpose, meaning, impact. The sense that their life matters, that they're making a difference, that they're doing what they were created to do." He said, "Tell them it's worth it. Whatever it costs, whatever they have to give up, whatever they have to walk away from, it's worth it. Because nothing compares to living in the center of my will, fulfilling the purpose I created them for." I believe that. I've experienced it in my own life. When I said yes to the chosen, when I stepped into portraying Jesus, even though I didn't feel qualified, even though I was afraid, it changed everything. It gave my life a meaning and purpose I never had before. And I'm telling you, your yes will do the same thing for you. The final image, I'm going to leave you with one final image. I'm looking out over these terraced vineyards right now, and the sun is starting to move toward the western horizon. The light is golden, warm, beautiful, and those vines that looked dead just weeks ago, are covered in tiny buds. New life, new growth, new fruitfulness. That's what's coming for you if you say yes. That's what's on the other side of your divine appointment. New life, new growth, new fruitfulness. The pruning season is ending. Spring is coming. Your season of breakthrough is coming. Don't miss it. Say yes. Jesus is calling your name. Answer him. Final call to action. Comment below right now. Type, "I will say yes." If you're committing to say yes to your divine appointment, share your prayer request. Tell me if you think you might be Sarah, Michael, or David. Tell me what divine appointment you think might be coming for you. Tell me you're starting the 30-minute daily encounters today. Subscribe to this channel, share this video, and get ready. March is coming. Your divine appointment is coming. Be ready to say yes. I'll be praying for you. I'll be checking the comments. I'll be following up throughout March. Don't miss your moment. Jesus is calling your name. Answer him.